Podcast by Friday, episode 41.
We are trying to teach you about minimum viable podcasts. So we want to keep the cost as low as possible so you don't have one more obstacle to get started. We're giving you what we find, get you going and get you some very good sound.
Podcast by Friday with Bill Griggs and Kingsley Grant. We help people to create their minimal viable podcast by taking bold action to defeat procrastination and to get their voices heard.
I'm Kingsley Grant.
And I'm Bill Griggs.
And you're listening to
Podcast by Friday.
Hey, Bill, how is it going? It's like we are here again behind the microphone to record another podcast for our episode for our audience, and I'm excited about this topic tonight.
Yeah, Kingsley, we've just spent the last few episodes talking to our listeners about ways that they could make money with their podcast, and now we're switching gears a little bit, and we're talking about something that will be very helpful for them, because we're talking about the resources that we use to make our podcasts better, easier, faster to produce.
Yeah, it's that's really so important because I know on people's minds sometime is, the question. As a matter of fact, I was in a Facebook group just recently, and there's a person who posted something in there, and she was asking about podcast equipment and what are some things that she needs to think about when she is doing, want to get a podcast going. And I'm saying, it just kind of dawned on me how many people might be asking those questions about resources as far as microphone and websites and hosting and all that. I'm so glad we've covered a number of those issues, but I'm looking forward to us kind of doing a deep dive of some sort tonight when we talk about, let me just kind of highlight this because sometimes as a potential podcaster, as you're listening, if you notice I just said something which I think is really, kind of you may want to stay away from, is identify the time of day. So tonight or this morning or this evening, and when you're doing a podcast, and I've done that sometimes, even tonight I've done it twice. And so I want to stay away from that because, a person may be listening to your podcast in the daytime and they hear, oh, tonight, and like, wait a minute, is it the daytime? So I just want to highlight that because I know it may not matter too significantly, but I try to stay away from those type of way of referencing when the podcast is being recorded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the other things that is very tempting. I know a lot of podcasters will sometimes also shoot video content of their podcast, and they will make reference to things like, well, as you can see right here.
Yes,
and they will point to something in their video, but the folks who are listening through audio can't see that. So mentioning the date and the time and things that people can't see, those are things that you should avoid.
Because when I hear that, like you just mentioned, I'm thinking, okay, but I can't see that, and you're only you're alienating a part of your audience because I can't see what you're showing the people who are live. Therefore, maybe it's not for me, So I just want to highlight because I think these are some things. It's not a blooper per se, but it's something to be cognizant about as a podcaster and potential podcaster, that you're mindful of those things. So I just wanted to highlight that as, and we're not going to take that out because it's important for us to use all these things as a teachable moment. So I really glad we brought that up. So Bill, you mentioned earlier then about resources, and one of our one of the most important resources, I believe, in any podcaster's toolbox should be a good microphone.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing like it. The sound of your audio as heard by your audience is very important, because if it's painful to listen to an episode, people won't listen. And we covered some of this back in episode 24 of Podcast by Friday, where we discussed the minimum recording equipment that you needed for your podcast. But this episode is going to focus in more on the microphones that you use, the best microphones for your minimum viable podcast. And I think that's valuable information that you could use, and, you can gain by using the knowledge and the experiments that we've already done to come up with some answers that, we're cost effective and produce great audio.
And that's very important in the day we're living in right now. People are looking for quality, and one of those ways to separate yourself from everybody else, or for most people, is to have a good sounding episode or podcast, because that is what people are used to. They're being trained to listen to good sound, and they're very. We talked about that in a past episode. Very, very not program, but some of those bigger podcasters. I mean, they're really coming out with the best of the best. And so if you're going to compete in this market, you want to have a good microphone. And I find, Bill, that sometimes a person just starting may not have an external microphone, and they're saying, okay, maybe I can get by, and probably can if you just want to record a podcast with your inbuilt microphone. But if you want a good quality, a good sound, you're not going to get that from the inbuilt microphone that comes with the device you're using.
Yeah, the microphone that is built into your device, if it is a smartphone or even a laptop, they were designed to be general purpose microphones so that people could make phone calls. That's basically it, or Skype calls. They were not designed to bring out the best as far as rejecting noise and things like that you really need when you want to produce good audio. And so you want to go with a built-in microphone over an external microphone for a variety of reasons. But key among them is the ability for it to reject noise other than your voice coming through.
And I think it was made for the purpose. And you're right. I think it's so important to realize that the microphone you're using for recording your podcast, it was made, and try to get one that's made. And we're going to identify in a few minutes about what we describe as we think are good microphones for podcasting. But I find, Bill, that's another question that people have sometimes, is how to connect their microphones to their devices, so that they're connected directly or otherwise. And I know for me, I connect my microphone directly into my laptop, right into that USB that comes with a laptop. And that is, as you're listening, you probably could hear, is a pretty good enough sound that I get. And that's how I connect my microphone right in my laptop. But I know you have a different kind of setup, right?
Well, yeah, there are several different setups, because I have both a PC and a Mac that I use depending on my mood or what I need to record. So, for instance, on my MacBook Air, when I plug in an external microphone to it, I plug it into the headphone jack, which is a combination on the MacBook line that can be either a microphone or a headset, depending on what you plugged into it. So, that's one way. But I also have USB devices that I plug in, which split out the signal. And in fact, in this MacBook Air that I was just talking about, I have a device on this side that is USB that plugs in to one of the USB ports, and it takes both a microphone and a headset so that I can split out the signals to my digital recorder. So, that's getting a little, further complex in there, but
right.
It's still very workable and not very expensive either.
But don't you also have your microphone running into your digital recorder or into a amplifier? How is your setup? I mean, we don't want to get into too much details as far as they can't see it, but enough to describe how yours is set up.
Well, I have a digital recorder that I use because I am very cognizant of the fact that I don't want to depend on software to store my audio files. When I'm creating my podcast, I like it to go to a digital recorder, and I use a recorder that's made from a company called Zoom, and it's a Zoom H6N recorder, which is what I have. And my microphone, I'm plugging in to that digital recorder using an XLR cable, which is, the regular audio cable that you would see like a rock band using or whatever. They're not expensive. Again, you can probably get a good XLR cord for, $10 $10, or it comes included with one of the microphones that we use that we'll tell you about. So, don't worry about that. But it plugs right into this side. And I also have, going into that digital recorder, I have the output from that USB device I mentioned earlier on my MacBook going into another port in this recorder. So it's recording not only my audio directly from my mic, but also Kingsley's feed, which is coming in over through Skype, through the internet and everything. So
yeah, and that's really, I'm glad you mentioned that, because and you might be listening. We want to make you just aware of how different setups are, and we will eventually demonstrate that in a live video format so you can actually see that. But we kind of want to introduce you to how these different connections are made. But I know even my smartphone, Bill, sometimes I have, as you said earlier, the microphone there is just made for general recording and just to use the phone to talk. But sometimes I record from that, and I find that it has an inbuilt microphone. But at times I will plug in like a lavalier microphone into that, because I need some room to navigate, and I don't want to keep the phone so close to me. And so it's plugged in directly there. And that's how I know some people also record their podcasts, is directly into their smartphone and then transfer the file afterwards.
Yeah. Just for those of you who have never heard the term lavalier, as far as microphone goes, it's the little microphone you see all the newscasters clip to their lapel.
Yeah.
And, you can plug one of those directly into your smartphone, and it will record your audio in a better sound quality than, what is built into, let's say, your iPhone headset.
Yes.
Or whatever. Or, if you've got a Chrome smartphone, same basic principle. These microphones don't care which brand you plug into.
Yeah. And also, Bill, you mentioned, we were talking earlier, because we were kind of, looking at your own DSLR.
Digital, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Recorder, so a video recorder. And sometimes people do that, and they will record into that and then take the audio from that and make it into a podcast, right?
That's
so
right.
that is gone directly into the video recorder, right?
Yeah. A lot of DSLR cameras, or straight up video cameras for that matter, will have an input jack for a microphone, and they will also have their own built-in microphones, and so you can either record using the microphone that's on the camera, or you can plug in a lavalier or some other external microphone. And we'll get into a little more detail about that later, because I know a lot of our listeners not only want to do an audio podcast, but would also like to be a vlogger. So, videotape their podcasts. And if that's what they want to do, we got to give them a tool to keep in their arsenal. So, one thing I'd like to say before we move on is the quality of the microphones that we're talking about in this episode. Our whole philosophy in Podcast by Friday is to teach you about the minimum things that you need to get going, so that there's no roadblocks around money or around the technology that's involved in this, so that you can get your podcast launched by Friday. A lot of big-time podcasters who've been in the game for years go out and spend $300-$400 on a microphone, like the Heil PR40 microphone, which is a fantastic microphone. Do you need it? That's the question we hope to answer in today's episode, because I really don't think you have to break the bank to get good sound.
And, I think that really is a great way to segue into the different kinds of microphones that we have, we know people use, we have heard of, we have researched ourselves, and we also use ourselves. Because I think, as you're listening, you're probably, okay, now what kind of microphone you might want to get. Bill just mentioned you don't want to spend a whole lot of money by breaking the bank, especially when you're getting started. It's unwise to do that. So what we want to talk about now is then, what microphones do we recommend or we use? And we want to start with one of that I think most people have mentioned. If you have listened to any other podcasters, recommendation is one I hear very often is Audio Technica the ATR 2100. That's one of those, they call it a podcaster's microphone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both Kingsley and I are using an ATR 2100 from Audio-Technica to record this podcast because it's a really great bang for the buck. I think at the time I purchased mine, it was below $60. In fact, I think I caught mine on sale for $39 at one point, but I haven't seen those sales in a while.
Yeah, I know.
But it's a really cool microphone. Comes with a stand. It comes with a XLR cable, a USB cable, and I don't remember. Did it come with a windscreen?
No, you had to buy that separately.
You had to buy a windscreen. Yeah. So, right out of the box, you were able to mount it on your desk and begin recording. You could plug it into your laptop, or you could plug it into your digital recorder, or whatever device you had, and it was ready to go because it has both USB and XLR built in.
Yeah, and it's also very lightweight. When I travel, I can easily bring that with me in, my carry-on or my pack it away. And so it's not a cumbersome microphone. Some microphone, I have a Blue Yeti, like when I first started podcasting way back. And this thing, it's a very cumbersome, heavy stuff. I remember I used to travel with that, and I had to, you have to weigh your luggage. And I'm thinking like, okay, I had to calculate my luggage with that microphone in mind because it was so heavy, I'm so glad I have moved away from that. And so the Audio-Technica is really a lightweight, and a multifaceted, as Bill mentioned, of the different plugins you can use with the Audio-Technica.
Yeah, what I find with this microphone is it's very good at rejecting the background noise and focusing in only on the recorded voice as it's going. And it's this particular kind of microphone. I think it's a cardioid. Let's try and say that. Cardioid.
That's good enough.
Yeah, it sounds like we'll put the proper spelling in the show notes, but it rejects a lot of this sound, and I'm really surprised. I'm stumbling over that one, but it does do a great job of getting your sound out, and it's probably what I would recommend most people would start with for a sit-down podcast.
Yeah, I want to mention also there is another podcast microphone is ideally the same as the Audio-Technica, and is recommended alongside that because it's a United Kingdom version of it. It's called the Samson Q2U, and it's a handheld dynamic USB microphone. But it also have the USB and the XLR cable attachment in the bottom. So really, almost like put those microphones side by side. If you didn't look really closely, you might think you have two Audio-Technica or two Samson Q2U. And again, we have all the links in the show notes that you can go and see what we're talking about and how you can find one easily. We have the links that can take you right there to see what we're discussing. So don't worry about trying to remember or write these things down. The show notes will get you there. So it's podcastbyfriday.com/41 is going to be where you'll find all these links that we're discussing. So the Samson Q2, the number 2, U is equally effective as my research shows to the Audio-Technica ATR 2100. Even though I don't have the Samson, but the research show is ideally the same microphone.
And just to be clear, that is Samson, like the biblical figure, not Samsung, the Japanese company. So it's SAMSON Q2U.
Right.
All right. And
we have all this in the show notes. So, we want to make sure we are taking these notes very diligently and copiously for you. So you don't have to worry too much about that.
There you go. Now, so there's really no need to go into other microphones for, the traditional sitting down at your desk recording of a podcast episode, because the ATR 2100 from Audio-Technica or the Samsung Q2U will get that job done for you.
Yes.
But what about when you are in other situations, like, for instance, when you want to do portable podcasts, when you're out doing something and you're talking in a non-controlled environment? One of the issues that you get if you're just using your recording device to capture your audio is that you'll have a hollow sound or a background sound because it's really not designed to focus in so much on your audio. So there are situations where you might want to be using a lavalier microphone, or you might want to be using something specifically to capture the audio for your video blogs. And which should we go into first, Kingsley?
Well, I think, since you mentioned about the audio for the video blog, because I know sometimes when I'm doing a video on my phone, for example, having a lavalier microphone, I don't have the Rode, because Rode is a very highly recommended lavalier microphone, and Bill described what that is earlier because of the sound quality. But I just use mine, and it's interesting. We were talking about this whole idea of devices and microphone. The phone, the one that comes with my iPhone, the regular, just when you put in your ears, that comes with the standard. That is a great recording microphone for a video on your phone. And sometimes though I have the Bluetooth phone thing, and I just want to mention this around my neck, and so I hide it under my shirt, which is attached to my Bluetooth on my phone. I can get the quality recording because of that. But if I never had that, a corded lavalier microphone helps me to do the very same thing. And I know we mentioned Rode just now, and I don't have one, but I know people who do, and they swear by that. I don't know if it's because of the quality of the sound they get or what. I don't, but they swear by the Rode as the way to go.
Rode, and that's spelled R-O-D-E, SmartLav is the microphone that I've heard the most about. And that is a simple plug-in mini microphone that you clip to your lapel that, just plugs right into your iPhone or your Android device, and it will record good sound, very good sound quality. People swear by them. They're out using them. I've seen them in use. Yeah. I have not used one personally, but everybody who uses one, swears by it. It's a great microphone, and I think it's around $100 though. Or $69, somewhere in that range, for it. And I'm cheap. Did I mention that I'm cheap? Yeah.
You're frugal.
I'm frugal, yeah. I like to do, and I'm also the type of person who likes to do a lot of research before spending money, trying to find out what's the best thing, what's the best deal, etc. And so while the Rode SmartLav is a great combination for people who are using, their smartphones and want that ability, I found another one that's made by Sony that I like very much. This is the section of our show where we would normally pause for a word from our sponsor. Now, if you would like to be the sponsor of the Podcast by Friday show, and you have a product or service that you feel would be of benefit to new entrepreneurs starting their new podcast, then contact us at podcast@podcastbyfriday.com. And we'll see if you'd be a good fit. And I'm also the type of person who likes to do a lot of research before spending money, trying to find out what's the best thing, what's the best deal, etc. And so while the Rode SmartLav is a great combination for people who are using, their smartphones and want that ability, I found another one that's made by Sony that I like very much. And it's the Sony ECMC S3. And, the Sony ECMC S3 is a clip-on style microphone. It's another lav. But what's different about this one is it's stereo and omnidirectional. So it'll pick up the sounds from different places. And it's great when you're trying to interview somebody out in the field and you only have the one microphone, because if they're standing to your right, they'll come in the right channel, and while your voice will come in on the left channel. And it's a really inexpensive microphone to buy. I believe it was $17
or $19.
Yeah, and the sound is fantastic.
Yes.
I first heard about it from Cliff Ravenscraft, and if you've never checked out Cliff's podcast, you might enjoy it, the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, where he talks about a lot of things podcast related. But I thought that was a fantastic microphone, and went out and got one, and I've been using it ever since Podcast Movement came out in 2016. There we go.
15.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny because I talk about this, and since you've discussed in our discussion, I went and I ordered one. So mine should be coming like today. As a matter of fact, as we're recording, this should be here. And so I'm looking forward to that, because I can't wait to begin to use that myself, because you talked so highly of it. Mm-hmm. But it's another way, as we mentioned, this whole idea of how we're trying to teach you about podcasting is simply saying is a minimum viable podcast. So we want to keep the cost as low as possible, so you don't have one more hurdle, one more obstacle to get started. Mm-hmm. And we're giving you what we find to be very cost effective, get you going, and get you some very good sound.
Yeah.
And that's why we have all this in the show notes for you.
Yeah. Now, another situation where you may be out recording podcast episodes. A lot of people will record a video podcast, as we've talked about, vlogging. Perfect example of somebody taking the audio and, using it, taking the video and using it, and creating multiple means of getting their message out, from one effort. When you're doing video, the audio can, make or break you. Now, I do a lot of audio out in a workshop, because I focus on making things, so people are seeing machines run and everything. And oftentimes when I'm out in the shop and I've got the video camera rolling and I'm speaking, it sounds kind of hollow like this, putting my hands over my mouth when I'm doing that. And I found a way around that is to use an external microphone. And, in the past I've used the Sony Lav that I mentioned earlier to do that. And I've also tried to use the ATR 2100, and I've done that on occasion, but it's a little bit cumbersome because it's a handheld mic. So right. I was looking for something like what I saw in the interviews that you see on TV, where somebody's got their digital camera out and they're recording somebody, and there's a boom mic right on the end of their camera. And I was looking at those, and the one that first popped up to me was made again by Rode, because Rode is kind of like the industry standard. But it was about it was over $100 for that microphone. And so I kept looking and I kept digging, and I came across the mic just this past week that I think will fit the need. And it was, what was it? $20 or something for this microphone. It wasn't very expensive.
Right. It was very inexpensive.
I think it was $24 or something like that. Anyway, it's the Takstar, TAKSTAR SGC 598. Now, I just got mine in the mail today, so I haven't yet had a chance to plug it in. But the reviews, the information I've found from other YouTubers and other bloggers and other podcasters about this microphone is that it is one of the best kept secrets out there. It's for $25, you can afford to try it and see if you like it. And so what I intend to do is shoot a short audio clip with all the microphones we've mentioned, identifying which one they are, and let you, the listener, judge what you think of it. And I'll probably shoot a video of it while I'm doing it.
So you can hear the different sound quality. Mm-hmm. But, what we also want to mention that, one of the things that we failed to have added was, once you buy the Audio-Technica ATR 2100 get started, you want to also at the same time get some pop filters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's very key to help you, again, keep the popping sound down. And so you get the foam, and we, in both Bill and I, have the foam on the microphone,
Mm-hmm.
and that little ball that fits over the top of the microphone. And we also have a filter above that to just make certain that we keep the sound, the popping sound from happening.
Mm.
And you want to make sure you invest, and just a few dollars, because the foam balls are probably $2 or so for 2 or 3, whatever it was. And I find the pop filter you can get for like $11. So it's not a whole lot of money to get them, and you don't invest too much money in that. They all work just fine.
Sure.
The key thing is a microphone that you want to invest in.
I mean, if you're being totally frugal, cheap, like I said before, you could take a pair of pantyhose and a clothes hanger and make one. You know, maybe I'll do a video on that. But for what they cost nowadays, your time is probably better spent just ordering one on Amazon. They'll be here in a day.
Yeah, you go old school on them, but it's like, this is what we do when you have to be ingenuity start flowing, make it happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to provide you, we want to make it very easy, very simple for you. And that's why in the show notes at podcastbyfriday.com/41, you find the links. And so you don't have to go and get a pantyhose and cut it out and put on your phone, your microphone. You can just go straight to the link and get it right from there. And we would, making certain that we bring you to the right spot in Amazon.
Yep. Now, moving on to the one last thing that I can think of, that, the one situation that we haven't really discussed is when you need your hands free and you need to be cord free to do your podcast. And some folks in like events or other things, they would like a wireless microphone setup and receivers, and those can cost a little bit. Recently, I've come across one, and I saw it at Podcast Movement, and I actually got to look at it. And by the way, Podcast Movement is a conference that we're going to again in September.
In August.
In August in Pittsburgh.
In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Let's try that again. But
it's okay. It's all right. Hey, you know what? We can make those errors, and it's part of we're humans, and this is what podcasting is all about. And don't have to worry about it, and sweat the small stuff.
So I'm going to Philadelphia in August for the Podcast Movement Conference. I hope you will.
Yeah, you can go to Pittsburgh. I go to Philadelphia.
Yeah. Off we go again. So anyway, this company, Samson, that we mentioned earlier, makes a UM1/77 combination pack, which gives you both a handheld microphone and a lavalier, and both are wireless. And you can plug them into this unit and use whichever one suits you and suits your situation. So you can get away from, whatever your recording device is, and have the receiver plugged into it, and it will record it onto your recorder, and everything will be fine. So, that's just one other way to check it out. So there's a link to that in the show notes if you're looking for that type of system.
I want to mention that, Bill, to be full disclosure, that those links are affiliate links that we will be posting in the show notes. Mm-hmm. And that means that, when you purchase with those links, we make a very, very small commission. It won't cost you any more than if you just purchase it directly. But we get a very small commission to buy coffee. Mm-hmm. And, we ask that you use those links to purchase these items that we have suggested. And I think it's really, the service and the value we're bringing to you is not too much to ask. Again, it doesn't cost you anything more. And we just want to make sure we make that full disclosure to you.
Sure. And if you want to use affiliate products and affiliate marketing in your podcast, we explained all of the details that you needed to know about it in episode 37 of Podcast by Friday. So you can find that at podcastbyfriday.com/37. And that will tell you about affiliate marketing and how to make money with your podcast through affiliate marketing. So check that out.
Awesome. Well, we've taken some time to talk about these this microphone and what they can do, especially the Audio Technica. And I think that, as you're listening, we want you to do something about what you've heard, because we can tell you about we mentioned before, why we use Audio Technica ATR 2100. And you've heard about it's lightweight, the quality, and the number of things, both the USB and XLR cables can be used. And so it's a tremendous microphone. And we're encouraging you, to invest in a good microphone to get the quality. That's the one we suggest. That's the one we use ourselves. And we want you to go and purchase a microphone, because the quality of your show is so important, especially in today's world of having so many bigger podcasts, having the quality, and that's what the people are used to. So make sure you go to the show notes, again, at podcastbyfriday.com/41, and click on the link there for the Audio Technica and purchase one. And when you do, let us know. As a matter of fact, take a picture of that, and we'd love to see that, and you can show it to us in our Facebook group. We have a Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/podcastbyfriday, and we'd love to see you just kind of showing your wares right there, meaning your microphone of that. I mean by that.
Well, the thing that we wanted to stress when we were setting up this episode and doing the research that we had to do to put this episode together, we wanted to give you, the listeners who's just trying to get started in their podcast, some choices that you could use that would not break your bank. And with the exception of the wireless microphone that we mentioned at the end, you could buy all of the other microphones combined. You could get the Audio Technica ATR 2100. You could get the Takstar SCG 598, and you could get that Sony microphone, all for under
ECM CS33.
Yeah, you could get all three of those microphones for under $100.
Yeah,
I mean, when you look at some of the big name microphones that are 3 or 4, 5 times that amount just for one of them, you can get all three of these for under $100 and sound great. No brainer to me, but I'm frugal.
We've taken away one more SQ, so you now have none as far as getting started, and we want to hear what you've decided to do. But we want, again, mentioned before, our goal tonight was simply one thing: to remove any barriers from your podcasting journey. And we want you to start like yesterday, but since yesterday is gone, today's your next best day.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to hear from you. Again, if you want to, I mentioned for the podcast, the link, it will be in the show notes at podcastbyfriday.com/41. But you can also email us if you wanted. Mm-hmm. I know I don't like to give a number of options, but I think sometimes people, you may say, can I contact you directly? Well, yes, you can. And if you want that, it's just podcast at podcastbyfriday.com, and the email comes directly to us. We read them, and we respond to them directly to you if that's what you want.
Yep, there's no excuse now why you can't sound great in your podcast, even on a budget. And, we've given you the resources that you need to take care of this. And I encourage you, stop procrastinating, go out, get your mic, and let's hear your voice.
That's a good call, Bill. And with that, I think this is a wrap. So, man, again, thank you for taking the time for us to sit down and we hear co-hosting the show and taking the time to really help our listener get started today. And I think this is a great way of remove any more barrier to not get started. So, Bill, great show again, man. And I think that we have accomplished what our goal was. And so I feel very good about it. And I think our listener does as well.
Podcast by Friday listeners, let's put all these low-cost microphones to the test. We've been mentioning several microphones that you could get all for under $100. Let's see what each one sounds like in the same setup with my Zoom H6 recorder going into the same channel. because each one of the microphones has a different physical shape and ability to be mounted differently, I put them as close as I could together in the same location. So with the presentation mic, the Techstar SGC 598, that is actually set up a little further away than the ATR 2100 is that I'm using right now. And that's simply to do with the way that they're designed. It's designed to pick up sounds at a distance. Whereas the lavalier microphones that I use from Sony, the Sony ECMC S3, is clipped to the top of my t-shirt. So it will be close in position. And the iPhone earbuds will be, in my ears, and the microphone where it normally would be if you were talking on the telephone. So bear that in mind as you listen to these clips from each one of these microphones. Podcast by Friday microphone test of Audio-Technica ATR 2100. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Podcast by Friday microphone test of the Techstar SGC 598. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Podcast by Friday microphone test of the Sony ECMC S3 clip style omnidirectional stereo microphone. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Podcast by Friday microphone test of Apple earbuds built-in microphone. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lastly, to give the Techstar SGC 598 a fair treatment, we have included several sound clips using the various functions that are available on the microphone, adjustment switches, which will change the sound of the microphone in use. And we do this first with no settings on, and then we click on each of the individual settings. Podcast by Friday microphone test of the Techstar SGC 598. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 0 decibels. Negative 10 decibels. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 10 decibels. Back to 0. Top bar testing 1, 2, 3. Bottom bar testing 1, 2, 3. Negative 10 decibels. And top bar together. 1, 2, 3. As you can see, you can get quite a wide variety of sounds by using the various settings available to you on the Techstar SGC 598 boom microphone. And I believe that all three of the microphones that we've mentioned in this episode, the Audio-Technica ATR 2100 broadcast microphone, the Techstar SGC 598 boom mic, and the Sony ECM CS3 stereo lavalier microphone. All of these are a great choice, and none of them will break the bank. I think a combined total for all three microphones is about $100. So we've put links in the show notes so that you can go ahead and check out these microphones if you like. If you'd like to order them as a bundle, there's also a link there through our Amazon affiliate link. You can find that link at podcastbyfriday.com/mics. Podcastbyfriday.com/MICS. Again, that would really help the show and get you your microphone sent your way so that you can get your podcast out by Friday. Podcast by Friday. Take bold action to create your minimal viable podcast today. Check out new episodes at podcastbyfriday.com or on iTunes or Spreaker.